I've been trying to think today what would I share related to homeschooling Harpers, and I've been thinking about the different teachers that I had and their impact on my life when I was their student and how some of that carried on into teaching. So the first one, you know, understanding, of course, that my parents were my first teachers, and Ms. Robinson also is in that group, Ms. Bardwell, so Esther McCullough, there, there's a lot of them where, my mom's friends from church who were our first teachers, but this is when the educational is a bit more formal. So mom said when I was 4 years old, I told her I wanted to go to school, and I did not want to go to play school. I wanted to go to real school. And so I was enrolled at Aldersgate Private School, which was kind of between our house and where my dad's veterinary clinic was. And I remember my kindergarten teacher was Ms. King, and we used the blue book. That was just so amazing to me. So the blue book was a book based on phonics, and so it might have the letter K and then a picture of a key and a picture of a house and a picture of a kangaroo, and you had to go through and circle all of the pictures, so I now know that that was phonics, but that was the most amazing thing to me. And what I found when I was doing our homeschooling, because yes, I taught a number of years with the district, and but secondary life science, not early childhood. But that's all I had in my house for a while. And so we used Explode the Code. And when I looked at it, I was like, oh my goodness, this is just like the blue book. And so quite a bit of practice with phonics, beginning with singles, then blends and digraphs, all that kind of thing. And even throwing some comprehension in as it continued. I remember one time I had assigned Raymond a few pages. We would do like maybe a chapter a week, and so I had assigned him the pages from this chapter to do, and he took his book and went off, and went off to the side and went to do his work. And then he brought it back to me, and he had finished the whole book. What are you doing? And he thought that that was just so funny that he finished the whole book, and it was correct. I'm like, man, if I had known you were going to finish the book, I would have gotten you the next one when we were at the homeschool resource store. Because it was a hike. But I, they thought it was funny to get ahead of me in their academics. The other thing about Miss King, when I was in first and second grade, my brother had Miss King in kindergarten. He was younger, and my mom was there too, and he couldn't be in her classroom because he would not call her Ms. Magruder, and he didn't like the other kids calling her mama. So he got moved into Miss King's room, and mom said that she went in there one day and he was at a circular table by himself, no chair, his little book, something to write with, his pencil, and he's just walking around the table. He would walk and write and walk and write. And she asked Miss King, why isn't Edward sitting down? She said, he's not bothering anyone. He's doing his work, and he needs to move when he works. And so I used that when I taught in the classroom. I had some students that needed to stand up, and I had since I was a lab science teacher, then I would have the labs along the side, the sinks, the counters, all that kind of thing. And so after I had done the general explanation, and the kids are in smaller groups and I'm walking the room, if someone needed to go and stand against the counter and work standing up, that was fine. With high school, some needed to sit in the floor. Okay, I know it's not orthodox and all that kind of thing, but their legs sometimes just the chairs weren't working for them, and so they could sit where they needed to in order to do their work, and they could talk. Some people needed to talk as they're doing the work, as long as we're not doing a test, and they're talking about my content, because I told them, if you're not talking about science when you playing your games outside my classroom, then it ought to be fair, you know. And so that was Ms. King's effect on my learning, and then also on the way that I taught in the environment that I put in the classroom. And it must not have hurt my brother any, because he has 2 doctorates. They weren't given to him. He has earned 2 doctorates, a doctor of veterinary medicine and PhD in immunology. My sister has a doctorate in clinical psychology. And I remember when my brother was working on my second, we had a church member that said, now Diana, Anita's got her doctorate and Edward's working on his second one. So what are you going to do about yours? I'm like, I'm gonna borrow one of Edward's. He's going to have 2. And so when mom went with me, when I withdrew Anthony from kindergarten, she was like, so where are you going to do school? I'm like, at the kitchen table, or the dining room table, or the bunk bed, or outside, you know. And it's just wherever you know, wherever they needed to be in order to match their learning style. Some of my graduate work had been related to cooperative learning, but then also just something that I did on my own was to look at reading styles, which basically someone took learning styles and applied it to teaching reading, because I had students who couldn't read, and science is almost like learning a foreign language in terms of the new vocabulary. So in order for my 7th grade students to be successful in life science, they had to learn how to read. And I had to know how to teach them. And so my first shout out is for Miss King at Aldersgate Private School.